When Leonard sat across from me, his first words were these. 22 years ago, there was a shooting at my school. The shooter was looking for me. He wanted to kill me, because I was the one who got him expelled. He stopped, took a breath. He never found me, but he found my girlfriend. Leonard's voice grew thick. His eyes weren't in my office anymore. They were somewhere else. 22 years in the past. While all of it was happening, I was hiding in a janitor's closet, he said. I was watching through the crack in the door. He swallowed hard. Rachel was on the floor. That kid, the one we expelled, he was on top of her. She was screaming. Leonard's hands began to tremble. At one point, she turned her head, and she saw me. Something broke in his face when he said the next words. Our eyes met. Rachel didn't beg. She didn't scream for help. She just looked at me. His voice cracked. And I didn't move. 22 years had passed. Rachel was still alive. She lived in the same town, but she had never looked Leonard in the face again. Not once. When was the last time you saw Rachel? I asked. Leonard's breath caught for a moment. Before answering, he closed his eyes as if returning to that moment. Last week, he finally said. At the grocery store. We were in the same aisle. His fingers pressed into his knee. She saw me. She put down her basket and walked out. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Every time I see her, I relive that moment. That closet, that crack in the door. But she... His eyes filled, but he didn't cry. He couldn't. Every time she sees me, she remembers what I am. Silence filled the room. Then he looked at me. I saw myself in her eyes once, he said. A monster. A pure, cowardly, disgusting monster. When he said that word monster, his voice didn't break. It actually grew calmer, as if he had accepted this years ago. In some sessions, my patients healed as they spoke, but some stories, they never left my mind. Today, I'm going to tell you one of those stories. If you're listening to this and you have things inside you that you can't hold anymore, share what you're going through and where you're listening from in the comments. I read every comment. I hear every story. If you want to hear more unforgettable therapy stories, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. If this story touched your heart, you can support me by liking. One day, I'd love to hear your story too. If you want me to share your story in my next video, you can send it to the email address in my profile. Remember, our stories heal a little when they're shared. Leonard Mitchell was 49 years old when he walked into my office. A middle school principal, respected in his community, a family man with a wife and 2 children, but there was something beneath the surface. I could see it in his posture, the way his shoulders curved inward, as if protecting something fragile, the way his eyes never quite met mine for more than a second before darting away. Before that day, everyone knew Leonard as the fearless one. He had been a wrestling champion in college, commando training in the military, the kind of man who ran toward danger, not away from it. His friends called him the Lion. But lions don't hide in closets, and Leonard had hidden for 47 minutes. What I didn't know yet, what would take weeks to uncover, was that Leonard hadn't just hidden, he had done something in that closet. Something that haunted him more than the violence itself. Something he had never told a single soul. There was a voice. His voice, calling out to someone he loved, and that voice had led to something unspeakable. There was a door. A door he closed, while someone begged on the other side. And there was a thought so dark that Leonard had buried it for over 2 decades. A thought that still made him count to 47 every single day at exactly 10:47 in the morning. Why 47? What happened in those 47 minutes? And why did Rachel, the woman who once loved him, look at him like he was something inhuman? The shooter, Danny Myers, had been just 19 years old, a former student, someone Leonard had personally helped expel 3 years before the attack. But Danny hadn't come back for random violence. He had come back with a list of names, people who had wronged him. And Danny didn't just want to kill them, he wanted to destroy them first. What brought Leonard to my office wasn't guilt alone. Something had happened at his school recently. Something that cracked open a door he had kept sealed for 22 years. A student had written words that Leonard had seen before, words that echoed across 2 decades, and Leonard had finally done something different. That night, he went home, looked in the mirror, and couldn't recognize the man staring back, because he realized something that shattered everything he believed about himself, about that day, about who was really responsible for what happened. But before I tell you what Leonard realized, I need to take you back. Back to who Danny Myers really was. Back to the boy everyone wanted to forget, because this story doesn't begin in that hallway. It doesn't begin with gunshots. It begins years earlier, with a decision that seemed so small at the time. A vote, a signature, a child labeled as problem and thrown away. The first time Leonard came to see me, he sat on the edge of the chair, not relaxed, not leaning back, perched like he might need to flee at any moment. I noticed his breathing immediately. Shallow, controlled, the kind of breathing people use when they're trying to hold something down, something that wants to rise. "Take your time," I said. "There's no rush here." He nodded but didn't relax. His eyes scanned my office, the exits, the windows, the distance to the door. A habit, I suspected, that had been with him for over 2 decades. This is hypervigilance, the nervous system of a man who had never truly felt safe since that day. His body was still in that closet, still listening for footsteps. "I don't know where to start," he said finally. "Start wherever feels right, or wherever feels wrong. Sometimes that's the same place." He was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, he told me about the shooting. The basics first. The facts that anyone could find in a newspaper archive: 3 dead, 7 wounded. Shooter killed by police? But I wasn't interested in facts. I was interested in what lived beneath them. "Tell me about Danny," I said. "Before that day." Leonard's jaw tightened. I watched his hands curl into fists, then release. This was the question he had been avoiding. Not just from me, from himself, for 22 years. The way Leonard's body reacted to Danny's name told me everything. This wasn't just guilt about hiding. This was something deeper, something that started long before the shooting. Danny was troubled, he began. That's what we called kids like him back then. Troubled, problem kid, bad seed. He exhaled slowly. He set fires, hurt animals, threatened teachers. Everyone wanted him gone. I wanted him gone. Did anyone ask why? Leonard's face changed. A flicker of something crossed his features. Shame, maybe, or recognition. The face of a man confronting something he had spent decades avoiding. "No, we just wanted the problem to disappear. So I made it disappear. I was on the disciplinary board. I voted to expel him. I was 27 years old, and I thought I was doing the right thing." I watched Leonard carefully as he spoke. His hands had moved to his stomach, a self-protective gesture, the body remembering what the mind tried to forget. This is somatic memory, the way trauma lives in our flesh, our posture, our reflexive movements. What was Danny's home life like? Leonard's eyes widened slightly. No one had ever asked him this before. I didn't know much. His father was in prison. His mother worked nights at a factory. He was alone most of the time. Sometimes he came to school with bruises. And no one investigated? He was a problem kid. Problem kids get bruises. That's what we told ourselves. His voice had grown bitter. We didn't see a child in pain. We saw a threat, and we eliminated the threat. What happened after he was expelled? Nothing. He just vanished. For 3 years, nothing. No one checked on him. No one cared. Then one morning he came back. Leonard's voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. He had a list. Everyone on that disciplinary board. He was going to kill us all. But he didn't start with us. He started with the people we loved. Danny's plan wasn't random violence. It was surgical cruelty. He wanted the people who threw him away to watch their worlds burn before he came for them. And Danny knew exactly where to strike Leonard first. It took 3 sessions before Leonard could talk about the day itself. The details. The sequence. The 47 minutes that had defined the rest of his life. He came in that day looking different. Older somehow. Like he had spent the week carrying stones on his back. Dark circles under his eyes, a tremor in his right hand he couldn't quite control. "I've been having the dreams again," he said as he sat down. "Every night this week. Tell me about them. It's always the same. I'm back in that closet. But in the dream, I can move. I can open the door. I can save them." His breathing had changed. Faster now. Shallower. But I never do. Even in the dream, I never do. I just watch. This is what we call repetition compulsion, the mind returning again and again to the scene of trauma, trying to rewrite the ending. But the ending never changes, because the dreamer isn't ready to let it change. The dream becomes a form of self-punishment, a nightly trial where the verdict is always guilty. Leonard, I want you to walk me through that day. Not the dream, the real day, as much as you can remember. He closed his eyes. When he opened them, he wasn't looking at me anymore. He was looking at a morning 22 years ago. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Rachel and I had plans that night. Dinner at that Italian place she loved. A movie afterward. Normal things. Stupid, ordinary, beautiful things. His voice was flat. Disconnected. This is dissociation. The mind's way of protecting itself from overwhelming emotion by telling the story as if it happened to someone else. A survival mechanism that becomes a prison. The first shots came around 10 in the morning. I was in the hallway, walking toward Rachel's classroom. I was going to surprise her. Bring her coffee. She always complained that the break room coffee tasted like dirt. He held up his hands. Empty now. But in his mind I knew. They were holding a coffee cup that never reached its destination. A small act of love that never arrived. When I heard the shots, I froze, just for a second. Then I ran, but not toward the sound. He looked at me then, really looked at me, searching for judgment in my face. I ran away, the lion, the fearless one, the man who everyone counted on. I ran like a coward and I hid in a janitor's closet. That's a survival response, Leonard. It's not cowardice. It's biology. Don't. His voice was sharp, like a blade. Don't give me excuses. I've had 22 years of excuses. Biology, trauma, fight or flight. None of it changes what I did next. I waited. This was the edge of something, the precipice he had been circling for decades. Leonard's refusal to accept any comfort told me we were approaching the real wound, not hiding. Something worse. Something he had convinced himself made him unforgivable. I called out to her, he whispered. The words seemed to cost him everything. I called Rachel's name. I shouted, Rachel, come to the closet, hide with me. I thought I was saving her. I thought I was being brave. His hands were shaking now, violently. But Danny heard me. He knew my voice. He had been my student. He had sat in my class every week for 2 years. He knew exactly whose voice that was. He was looking for me, and my voice told him exactly where I was. Leonard's face contorted with a pain that seemed to reach back through time. But he didn't find me. He found her first. Rachel was running toward my voice, toward safety, toward me, and Danny intercepted her. The room seemed to grow colder. Danny knew about us. Everyone knew we were together. He had seen us holding hands in the parking lot. He had seen me kiss her in the hallway when we thought no one was watching. Leonard's voice dropped so low I had to lean forward to hear. Danny didn't just want to kill me. He wanted to destroy me first. He wanted me to watch. He wanted me to hear. And then he wanted me to live with it. What Leonard told me next, I will not repeat in full detail. Some things are too dark to echo. But I will tell you this. Danny didn't kill Rachel. He did something worse. He left her alive. On purpose. He knew I was watching, Leonard said, through that crack in the door. He kept looking toward the closet, smiling. He wanted me to see everything. As a psychologist, I have heard many terrible things, but the calculated cruelty of what Danny did, using Rachel's body as a weapon against Leonard, was a level of psychological torture I had rarely encountered. Danny had been deeply wounded as a child, and wounded children sometimes grow into adults who know exactly how to wound others. Rachel looked at me. Leonard continued. During it, she turned her head and she found my eyes through that crack, and she didn't look away. She held my gaze the entire time, like she wanted to make sure I was witnessing, like she wanted me to carry it. Tears were streaming down his face now, but his voice remained steady, the steadiness of a man who had told himself this story every day for 22 years. And I didn't move. I didn't open that door. I didn't try to stop him. I just watched, like a coward, like exactly the kind of person Danny wanted to prove I was. When it was over, Leonard said, Danny leaned down and whispered something in Rachel's ear. Then he walked away. He left her there, alive, breathing, broken. What did he whisper? I asked. I didn't know. Not then. Rachel told me later, years later, 3 words. Leonard's face twisted. Tell him everything. In the sessions that followed, Leonard told me about Michael, his best friend since college, the one who had encouraged him to become a teacher. the one who had introduced him to Rachel at a faculty party 3 years before the shooting. Michael was everything I wanted to be, Leonard said. Genuinely brave. Not performing bravery like I was. Actually brave. He coached the basketball team. He stayed late to tutor kids who were failing. He once broke up a fight between 2 seniors who were both twice his size. Didn't even hesitate. What do you mean performing bravery? Leonard laughed, a hollow, bitter sound that echoed in my office. My whole life I've been playing a role. The tough guy, the protector, wrestling championships, military training, being the teacher who doesn't take any crap. It was all performance. Armor I built because I was terrified people would see what was underneath. And what is underneath? He couldn't finish the sentence. But I understood. Underneath the armor was a frightened boy. Most armor is built by frightened boys who never learn that vulnerability isn't weakness, that asking for help isn't failure, that real strength isn't about never being afraid. It's about what you do with your fear. Tell me what happened with Michael that day. Leonard's body changed, his shoulders pulled in, his hands gripped his knees so hard his knuckles went white. He was shrinking, becoming smaller, returning to that closet. What Leonard told me next was the second wound, the one he had buried even deeper than what happened to Rachel. Because this one he couldn't blame on Danny alone. After what he did to Rachel, he walked away, down the hall, looking for others on his list. I heard more shots, screaming. Then I heard footsteps coming back, and something else. Leonard's voice had become mechanical, flat. The dissociation was protecting him from the full force of the memory. Someone crawling, dragging themselves across the floor, wet sounds, like something being pulled through water. I noticed that Leonard had stopped blinking. His eyes were fixed on some point beyond the room, beyond the present moment, beyond the 22 years that separated him from that hallway. I looked through the crack in the door. It was Michael. Leonard's voice cracked. He was shot in the stomach, his intestines. He was trying to hold them in with his hands. He was crawling toward me, leaving a trail of blood, pulling himself forward with one arm while the other held his guts inside his body. He saw me, through the crack. Our eyes met, and he whispered my name. Leonard, pull me in. Please, save me. I held my breath. This was the moment, the axis upon which Leonard's entire life had turned. I looked at Michael, so, my best friend, the man who introduced me to the love of my life. I looked at the blood trail behind him, and I did what I've always done best. His face contorted. The mask was slipping. I calculated. I thought, if I pull him in, Danny will see the blood, he'll follow it, he'll find us both. He'll kill us both. I closed the door. The words hung in the air like smoke. I closed it while he was looking at me, while he was begging, while his guts were spilling onto the floor. I closed the door and I pressed my hand over my mouth and I listened to my best friend die. The room was silent. I let it be silent. Some moments need silence. Some confessions need space to breathe. How long did it take? I asked gently. I don't know. Minutes, hours, time stopped existing. I just heard sounds, gurgling, gasping, then nothing. Then Danny's footsteps coming back. He found Michael's body and he laughed. Leonard's whole body was trembling. He laughed and said, 1 down, 4 to go. Where are you hiding, Leonard? I know you're here. I can smell your fear. Over several sessions, Leonard reconstructed those 47 minutes. Not chronologically at first. Trauma doesn't organize itself into neat timelines. It comes in fragments. Sounds, smells, flashes of image that arrive without warning. The smell of cleaning chemicals in the closet, mixing with the copper scent of blood seeping under the door. The sound of his own heartbeat, so loud he was certain Danny would hear it through the thin wooden door. The weight of his hand over his mouth, pressing hard enough to leave bruises for days afterward. The crack of light from the door, his window into hell. What was going through your mind during those 47 minutes? I asked. This was the question Leonard had been dreading. The question he had never answered honestly. Not to the police. Not to the counselors afterward. Not to his wife. Not to himself. What Leonard said next was the darkest confession I had ever heard in my career. Not because of what he did, but because of what he felt while doing it. Everyone thinks I was frozen with fear. That's the story I've told. That's what I've told everyone for 22 years. I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. I was in shock. But that's not what happened. Leonard shook his head slowly. His face had gone pale as bone. I wasn't frozen. I was thinking, calculating, the whole time, every second. When Rachel was screaming, I was doing math. When Michael was begging, I was doing math. If I help them, I die. If I stay hidden, I live. He looked at me with something like defiance, daring me to condemn him. And then I thought something worse. I thought, Michael's dead anyway. He's gut shot. No one survives that. Why should I die for a dead man? His voice cracked, but he pushed on. This confession had been waiting 22 years to be spoken aloud. And then the worst thought of all, the one I've never told anyone, the one that makes me wake up at 3 a.m. drenched in sweat. His whole body was trembling now, like a building about to collapse. Say it, I said softly. Whatever it is, it needs to be spoken. It needs air. I thought, Danny should have died years ago. That troubled kid. That problem we expelled. Someone should have locked him up, put him away, killed him even. Why should I die because nobody dealt with him? Why should I pay for everyone else's failure? He was crying now. The first tears I had seen from him, they fell silently, dropping onto his hands. Do you know what the worst part is? When I thought that, when I decided that my life was worth more than Michael's, more than Rachel's suffering, more than everything, I felt something I've never admitted to anyone. He looked up at me, eyes red, face wet. I felt relief, pure relief. It's not me. The one dying is not me. And for a moment, just a moment, I felt good. I felt safe. While my best friend bled out 3 feet away from me, I felt safe. He buried his face in his hands. That's who I really am. Not the lion. Not the protector. Not the hero. Just a man who chose himself and felt good about it. A man who did the math and liked the answer. What Leonard described is not uncommon in survival situations, though it is rarely spoken about with such brutal honesty. In moments of extreme danger, the brain doesn't process morality the way it does in normal circumstances. The amygdala, our fear center, takes over. The prefrontal cortex, where our ethics and higher reasoning live, goes quiet. We become survival machines, calculating odds with ruthless efficiency. This is called the survival brain. It doesn't care about friendship. It doesn't care about love. It doesn't care about the person you've always believed yourself to be. It cares only about one thing: getting you out alive. But here's what made Leonard's case different from most survivors I've worked with. Most survivors who experience these thoughts, the cold calculations, the relief at someone else's suffering, don't remember them clearly. The brain protects us from memories that would destroy our self-concept. We forget the ugly calculations. We reconstruct the narrative into something we can live with. We tell ourselves we were frozen, not choosing. Leonard remembered everything, every thought, every calculation, every moment of relief. His memory was unusually intact, which meant his guilt was unusually profound. And more than that, he had a living witness to his choice. Rachel. Every time he saw her, he saw the truth reflected back at him. The truth he could never escape, the truth he couldn't reconstruct into something bearable. But Rachel wasn't just a mirror for Leonard's guilt. She had her own story, her own pain, and her own verdict on the man who had watched through the crack in the door. Leonard, I said, can I share something with you? He nodded, not looking up. His hands were still trembling in his lap. What you experienced in that closet, the calculations, the relief, the choice, that's what extreme trauma does to a human brain. It strips away everything except survival. In that moment, you weren't Leonard the teacher, Leonard the friend, Leonard the boyfriend. You were a mammal trying not to die. Then why do I still feel it? He asked. Why do I remember the relief so clearly? Why don't I feel sorry for thinking those things? Sometimes in my darkest moments, I still think, I was right to hide. I would have died. What good would that have done? This is the paradox of survivor's guilt. The logical part of Leonard's brain knew he couldn't have saved Michael. Knew that opening that door would have meant 2 deaths instead of 1. But logic doesn't heal trauma. Logic doesn't erase the image of your best friend's eyes as you close the door in his face. Part of you believes you don't deserve to forgive yourself, I said. Guilt is a way of staying connected to the people we've hurt. If you forgive yourself, you're afraid you'll lose them completely. You're afraid forgiveness means forgetting. Leonard looked up at me. Something shifted in his eyes, a crack in the wall he had built around himself. I count to 47 every day, he whispered, at 10:47 every morning, for 47 seconds. Nobody knows, not even my wife, not even my children. What happens during those 47 seconds? I tell myself the truth, the same words every day, for 22 years. What words? He took a breath, steadied himself. When he spoke, his voice was eerily calm. You killed them. You. Weeks into our sessions, Leonard finally told me about the student. The one whose note had broken him open. The one who had finally driven him to my office after 22 years of silence. His name is James, Leonard said. 14 years old. Quiet kid. Smart. Angry. So angry you could feel it when you walked past him in the hallway. What was in the note? Everything I've heard before. Nobody sees me. Nobody listens. Everyone would be better off. The world is cruel and I want to make it pay. Leonard's voice softened. For the first time since he'd started coming to me, I heard something other than guilt. I heard recognition. Danny wrote almost the same words 25 years ago. I saw them in his file after the shooting. The same pain, the same rage, the same cry for help that nobody answered. And there it was, the connection Leonard had never allowed himself to make. The thread that connected the boy he had expelled to the boy in his office to the man hiding in his closet. What did you do when you found James's note? What I should have done with Danny. He sat up straighter. Something in his posture changed. A glimpse of the man he might have been, the man he still could be. I sat with him. For hours, I didn't call the police. I didn't call his parents right away. I didn't file a report. I just sat, and I asked him to tell me everything. Everything he was feeling. Everything that hurt. And he talked for 3 hours. His father left when he was 6. His mother works 2 jobs, gone before he wakes up, home after he's asleep. He gets bullied every day, shoved into lockers, called names, his homework stolen and destroyed. He's never had a single adult in his life actually sit down and ask him how he's doing. Leonard's eyes were wet. By the end, he was crying. Not angry anymore, just sad. Just a sad, lonely kid who wanted someone to see him. Someone to say, you matter, your pain matters, I'm listening. You saved him, Leonard. No. His voice was sharp. I failed him. For months, I saw the signs, the isolation, the anger, the darkness behind his eyes, and I did what I always do. I looked away. I let someone else handle it. I made him someone else's problem. Just like I did with Danny. He leaned forward, intense now, the words pouring out like water through a broken dam. 22 years ago, I could have been the one to help Danny. I was his PE teacher. He was in my class every week for 2 years. I saw him struggling. I saw the pain. I saw the bruises. And I chose to see a problem instead of a person. I chose paperwork over presence. I chose expulsion over engagement. His hands clenched into fists. Danny wasn't born a monster. We made him. The system made him. His absent father made him. His broken home made him. And I made him. I was one of the last people who could have reached him. And instead, I voted to throw him away. He looked at me with eyes that held 22 years of accumulated truth. And then I hid in a closet while the monster I helped create destroyed everything I loved. Near the end of our work together, Leonard told me about an encounter that had happened years ago. One he had never processed. One he had buried so deep it took months of therapy to surface. I ran into Rachel at a funeral, he said. Michael's mother's funeral, 10 years after the shooting. That must have been difficult. I almost didn't go, but I owed Michael's mother that much. She never knew what I did. She thought I was his best friend who tried to save him. She sent me a card every year on the anniversary, thanking me for being there at the end. Thanking me. The bitterness in his voice could have etched glass. Rachel was there. She had married, had children. She looked normal, whole, like she had built a life despite everything, like she had found a way to keep living that I never could. Did you speak to her? I tried. I walked up to her after the service. I said her name. She turned around. Leonard's breath caught. Even now, years later, the memory had the power to stop him cold. What Rachel said to Leonard that day was only one sentence, but those few words carried 20 years of pain, rage, and a verdict that Leonard would never escape. The way she looked at me, it wasn't hate that I could have handled. Hate, I could have understood. I had hated myself for a decade. But this was worse. It was nothing, like I wasn't even there, like I had stopped existing for her the moment I closed that door on Michael. What did she say? One sentence. Just one. She said, "I survived him. I won't survive you." The weight of those words hung in the air like a physical presence. Rachel had survived Danny's violence. She had rebuilt herself, piece by broken piece. But Leonard's betrayal, the betrayal of love, of trust, of everything she had believed about the man she thought she knew, that was a wound that never closed. What did she mean by that? I asked, though I thought I knew. She meant that what Danny did to her body, I did to her soul. Danny was a stranger, a monster, a nightmare that walked in from outside her life. She could hate him, she could process him, she could put him in a box labeled evil and move on. Leonard's voice dropped. But I was the man she loved, the man she trusted, the man she was running toward when Danny caught her. And I watched. I watched everything, and I did nothing. He shook his head slowly. She doesn't hate me for not saving her. That she might have forgiven. She hates me for what not saving her did to her ability to trust, to love, to feel safe with anyone ever again. Every relationship she's ever had since then, she's wondered, would this person watch? Would this person calculate? Would this person choose themselves? This is what psychologists call secondary trauma, the ongoing damage that radiates outward from the original wound. Danny had hurt Rachel once. Leonard's betrayal hurt her every day, in every relationship, in every moment of vulnerability. I destroyed her ability to trust men, to trust love, to trust that anyone would ever choose her over themselves. That's my legacy. That's what I did to the woman I loved. Healing doesn't come in dramatic moments. It comes in small choices, small shifts, small acts of courage that no one sees. For Leonard, the first shift came when he stopped counting to 47. I didn't plan it, he told me one afternoon. His face was different that day. Softer somehow. Last Tuesday, 10:47 came and went, and I didn't notice. I was helping a student with something. A girl who was struggling with a history essay about the Civil War. We were talking about courage and sacrifice and what it really means to stand up for something. His voice wavered, and for the first time in 22 years, I missed it. 10:47 came and went, and I was present. I was there, with her, not in that closet. How did that feel? Terrifying, at first. Like I had betrayed them again, like forgetting was another form of abandonment, like I was leaving Michael to die all over again. And then I realized something. I wasn't forgetting them. I was remembering something else. The student I was helping. A kid who needed me to be present, not stuck in the past, not drowning in guilt. Present, actually there, actually listening. This is the paradox of trauma that I see again and again in my practice. We hold on to pain because we think it honors the people we've hurt. We think forgiveness means forgetting. We think moving forward means leaving them behind. But the truth is, staying trapped in guilt doesn't honor anyone. It just creates more suffering. It just wastes the life that survived. I can't change what I did, Leonard said. I can't bring Michael back. I can't undo what happened to Rachel. I can't make Danny unhappy. I can't go back to that closet and open the door. No, you can't. But I can choose what I do now. Every day, every interaction with every student who walks through my door, I can choose to see them, really see them, even the difficult ones, especially the difficult ones, the ones everyone else wants to throw away. He looked at me with something new in his eyes. Not hope exactly, not yet, but possibility. The faint glimmer of a future that wasn't just survival. Maybe that's the only redemption there is. Not fixing the past, just not repeating it. Not saving Danny, just saving the next Danny. And the next. And the next. Our last session was different. Leonard sat back in the chair for the first time, not perched on the edge, not ready to flee, actually sitting, actually present. I wrote her a letter, he said. Rachel, I didn't send it, but I wrote it. What did it say? The truth, everything I've told you, everything I've never told anyone, the calculations, the relief, the choice, the 47 seconds, all of it. Why didn't you send it? Because it's not for her. It's for me. She doesn't need my confession. She's built a life. She has children. She's moved on in whatever way she can. My guilt is my burden, not hers. Sending that letter would have been one more selfish act, making her carry my need for forgiveness. I nodded. This was wisdom, hard-earned wisdom, the kind that only comes from years of carrying something heavy and finally learning how to set it down. I also told my wife, he added quietly. Everything? Everything. 23 years of marriage, and I finally told her who she was really married to. The calculations, the relief, the choice, all the things I've hated myself for. I told her about Rachel, about Michael, about the 47 seconds. How did she respond? Leonard smiled. A real smile. The first I had ever seen from him. It transformed his face, revealing the man he must have been before the closet. She said, I know. She said she'd always known something was broken inside me. She could feel it when I flinched away from her touch. When I woke up at 3 a.m. drenched in sweat, when I disappeared for exactly 47 seconds every morning at 10:47. She just didn't know what it was. He wiped his eyes, and then she said something that broke me. In a good way. She said, I don't love you despite what you did. I don't love you because you survived. I love you because you've spent 22 years trying to be better, because you never stopped hating that man in the closet, because you've been fighting him every single day. I didn't know people could do that, love someone who had done what I did. But she does. And maybe that means something. I thought about the journey Leonard had taken, from the man who walked in that first day, armored and isolated and ready to flee, to the still broken yet still carrying his burden, but no longer alone with it, no longer drowning in silence. What's next for you, Leonard? Living. Actually living. Not performing courage I don't feel, not hiding behind armor, just being who I am, the good and the terrible, and trying to do better every day. Every student, every chance to be the person I wasn't that day. He stood to leave. At the door he turned back. Can I ask you something? Of course. The question Leonard asked me in that doorway was the same question he had been asking himself for 22 years, and for the first time he was ready to hear an answer that wasn't just condemnation. Do you think I'm a monster? I considered the question carefully. He had waited 22 years for an honest answer. He deserved one. I think you're a man who made an impossible choice under impossible circumstances. I think you've punished yourself more harshly than any court, any judge, any jury ever could. You've sentenced yourself to a lifetime of 47 seconds, of grocery store encounters, of watching yourself close that door over and over again. I met his eyes, and I think the fact that you're standing here, asking that question, trying to be better, dedicating your life to the kids everyone else wants to throw away, that's not what monsters do. Monsters don't ask if they're monsters. Monsters don't count to 47. Monsters don't come to therapy and tear themselves open looking for redemption. He nodded slowly. His eyes were wet, but he was smiling. A small, broken, beautiful smile. Thank you, he said, for listening, for not looking away. Then he left. I never saw Leonard again professionally, but I heard about him. About the programs he started for at-risk students. About the troubled kids he took under his wing, the ones with bruises, the ones with rage, the ones everyone else wanted to expel. About the principal who seemed to know exactly which students were struggling before anyone else did. About the man who stayed late, who listened, who never looked away. He couldn't save Danny, he couldn't save Michael, he couldn't undo what happened to Rachel. He couldn't go back to that closet and open the door, but every day he made a different choice. And maybe, in the end, that's all any of us can do. We can't change who we were in our worst moment. We can only choose who we become in all the moments after. I hope this story has helped you see your own life, your own choices, your own moments of fear and courage in a different way. I hope it has helped you understand that the worst thing we've done doesn't have to be the last thing we do. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. To know a little about you and your story. What did Leonard's journey stir in you? Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose? Have you ever carried something for years that you've never spoken aloud? If you want to share what's inside you, you can write to the email address in my profile. I read every message, I hear every story, and if this story touched you, don't forget to like and subscribe. To be notified of the next real-life story, click the bell icon to turn on notifications. Before we end, I want to ask you a few questions. Take a moment to think about them. What do you think about Leonard's story? Does his journey remind you of anything in your own life or in the lives of people you know? Do you believe Leonard was a coward? Or was he simply human in an inhuman situation? Is there a difference? If you were Rachel, could you ever forgive someone who made the choice Leonard made? Or would that be asking too much of any human being? What would you say to the 27-year-old Leonard hiding in that closet, watching through the crack in the door? And what would you say to the 49-year-old Leonard who finally told the truth? Do you think Danny Myers was born evil? Or do you believe that somewhere along the way, someone could have saved him? What does that say about our responsibility to the children society wants to throw away? Can we ever truly know how we would act in a life or death situation? Or is it only in those moments that we discover who we really are? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Your perspective matters. Your voice matters. Your story matters.